idea.
Well, citizens' assemblies don't necessarily have to do with referenda. They have to do with all sorts of different issues.
Yes,
Referenda, obviously, Brexit has given it a dodgy name, to say the very least. But I do think it's a really good idea to restore faith in democracy, to have institutions that really invite citizens to get involved in a more direct way, and really also give a sort of sense that democracy isn't just about these leaders up there, and that judgment is something that we really need to be valuing a little bit more.
This puts a kind of strain on the citizen, doesn't it? If we're to judge and make judgments, that we all have a kind of larger responsibility to think carefully about things before voting, and not vote on those tribal lines.
Yeah, and look, the direct experience of these is that people can engage with incredibly complex and really dry topics as well. We did one on the legislative process, as in how should people interact with the legislative process from government, and people end up passionate about these, and you can see them coming out the other end more engaged and more thinking about the issues that you're discussing. So, I mean, you have to say it's not a panacea to democracy's challenges, and it's definitely not a replacement for representative democracy. It's part of a system where we've underused it, particularly in places like the UK. We've not used it enough, and we've got signals that people like Sue Gray and others are interested in this.
We shall see
for the
what
future.
will happen. Thank you to all of my guests. Bobby Duffy, Director of the Policy Institute at King's College London, Erica Benner's Adventures in Democracy and Alpa Shah's The Incarcerations, BK16 and the Search for Democracy in India are both out now. Many thanks to today's studio engineer, Duncan Hannand. Next week, Adam Rutherford on City Life. But for now, thank you and goodbye.
Start the Week was presented by Tom Sutcliffe and produced by Katie Hickman. Woman's Hour this morning is marking the centenary of the Declaration of the Rights of the Child, what we now know as the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Find out how it's still making an impact after the news at 10 o'clock.
I'm Helen Lewis, and I'm exploring how instant messaging has changed the world.
I don't think we would end up with the hardest possible Brexit without Steve Baker and his WhatsApp group.
From how we date and how we vote, to how we fight wars and how we argue.
Ultimately, the source of lots of conflict and drama. That's how I would sum up Slack. They should put that in their ad materials.
Join me as I uncover stories from the world of instant messaging.
Private military documents about the Russia-Ukraine war linked on my Discord server.
Helen Lewis has left the chat. Continues on Wednesday mornings at 9:30 on Radio 4 and BBC Sounds.
The daily service is getting underway now on Radio 4 Extra with the reading from Genesis. The Reverend Richard Littledale reflects on walks in the Bible. Here on Radio 4, Cafe Hope. And on the 35th anniversary of the Hillsborough disaster, Kevin Morland talks to Rachel Burden about how tragedy spurred him on to try to make people's lives better.
Welcome to Cafe Hope. I'm Rachel Burden, and this is my place where friends and neighbours come in, pull up a chair and tell us what's going on. But these are very special stories from remarkable people who have transformed the lives of those around them. Sometimes it's just a small change which helps just one person, or it could be a huge project which benefits an entire community. What I'm interested in is why they do it, how they do it, and what happens when it doesn't go to plan. Our cafe isn't a story of perfection, but it is one of hope. So come and join me, I'll stick the kettle on, and we'll give your day a bit of a lift. The coffee is bubbling away over there, flapjacks are out of the oven, and the cafe cat is getting under my feet. It's time to open up. Here's our first customer. It's Kevin Morland from Liverpool. How are you?
Hi Rach, I'm fine, thank you.
Take a seat over there. I'll be over in just a minute. Let me get you a brew.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, can you have a coffee, please?
We'll sort that out for you. Have you had a busy day so far?
Been really good, thanks. We've just had one of our children's groups going on, the young kids, so I'm feeling really positive.
Busy time of year, isn't it? I know, for you and for your amazing organisation, An Hour for Others, which is what we want to talk to you about today. So it started as a place where people volunteered their time and skills to help other people in their community. But your motivation to do it came from a very traumatic experience as a child.
I was just absolutely football mad, a Liverpool fan. My dad was a massive Liverpool fan. He started taking me to watch Liverpool when I was 4. So I was going to match run about 1979, 1980. I started going to watch Liverpool. So he used to take me on the Kop. The Kop used to be filled with like 28,000 like Scouse men. There was a lot of people going through like hard times at the time, you know, going through dole, going through strikes and stuff. So I'd always be listening to all these conversations going on as well as watching the match.
And then came that terrible day at Hillsborough, 1989. What are your memories of that day?
So I'd said to my dad I wanted to stand right behind the goal, and I remember my dad saying straight away, I don't want to stand in there, Kevin, it was really packed last year, you know, and my dad ended up saying to me, look, I want to move to the side. I ended up having a bit of an argument, and in the end my dad just said, Kevin, we're moving, and he dragged me. We went up to the top of the terrace, went out to the side. Once the game had kicked off, Liverpool hit the bar, which caused a surge. That surge then snapped the barrier that I'd been stood on with my dad, actually snapped. It's just like a scene in a car. I still remember it so clearly, like the blue sky, the green pitch, the blue fences. And I always remember it was just getting that much on the pitch, watching what I was watching. Out at the back of the other side of the ground, you could see like the Yorkshire Hills. And I just started looking at the hills. And I always remember thinking, them hills over there just look so peaceful and calm. And yet I'm watching this happening in front of my eyes.
I think it's impossible for anyone else to imagine what that must have been like. How did that change you in the years that followed?
Obviously, you just know how lucky you've been to survive something. So straight away, that triggers something in your brain. So just, you look at life so differently because, you know, you're going through divisions in your head. What would have happened if I wouldn't have made that choice?
You started working in a children's home back in the early 2000s. Was that a bit of a turning point?
There was quite a few turning points around then. So I was working in a school like for kids with challenging behaviour. For some reason I was having a really good effect on the kids, and everyone was saying to me, you're really good at this job, and I was thinking I'm not even doing anything, I'm just literally being me. But I think that's why I was doing well, because like you say, all of them experiences that I'd had in life, I was using them as a positive to help the kids, and then I started to dawn on me, this is my path, helping people is my path, this is what I'm good at.
You have the music of Richard Singer, an adult now, who's the policy and the integrity of the
It's amazing to think that, you know, you do your plan and seeds all the time. Sometimes you feel like you're banging your head against the wall, but it's always your plan and seeds that's like you'll eventually grow.
Do you remember how the idea was born and how it first came?
When my mum and dad, I started to really like question things and look at things around and see the world differently, and all of the evidence pursue then was like negativity of things. And I wake up about 3 o'clock in the morning, my mind's racing, and then I was thinking, obviously I thought about how I was complaining constantly about the world, and then it dawned on me, I thought, I want to see a kind of world, I want to see a world that helps each other, I want to see people thrive. And I thought to myself, well, who am I waiting for to do that? Who is it who's going to ever come and go wave a magic wand and say, there's a cleaner street, there's a kind of person, there's like a better community? I realised that unless I become kinder, unless I become more respectful, I'm not going to see the change that I want to see. And it was literally, I always say, it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I just thought to myself, I've got my skill at painting and decorating, that I can give that back each month in the community. And I'm doing my part, and that's all I can do is my little part. And then that was when it dawned on me, oh my God, if every single person does that, that's how the world changes. Everybody's got a skill or a talent or a bit of time or a listening ear or a word of advice or whatever it is.
So what did you do first time? Did you just stick a notice up in the shop and say, anyone need a room decorated? How did it work?
I went on Facebook and I just said, I've had an idea. But what happened when I put the post out, all of a sudden everybody said, that's a great idea, Kev, what do you want me to do? And I was like, I don't know what I want you to do. And then I was just getting people then saying, well, I'm a taxi driver, Kev, so I'll give it to someone who needs a taxi and stuff like that. And without people going off and just doing it themselves, everyone was coming to me to offer me support. A lot of people just backed it at the start. A lot of people like I had mates coming forward saying, Kevin, I'll help you paint. And I said, you're not getting near a paintbrush because you're not a painter. I said, I wouldn't let you in my house, so I'm not going to let you in someone else's house, am I? And then that was when people sort of started to go away, and I'd get friends then who'd have like tickets for the match, the Liverpool or Everton matches, and they used to give us tickets and say, pass them on to some kids who, you know. Also at the time, there was lads who knew who said, look, this has got really good legs to be like an organisation. It's needed big time in the city because you've got the community there at grassroots, you've got businesses and you've got professionals, you've got really... £600 to get it painted. So I ended up saying, look, well, I'll do it in on the weekend or after work and stuff like that. I just ended up painting that room. That was the first one that I done. I met Jill, who's now my partner, and Jill absolutely loved the idea. I told her on my first date, so I knew it was a winner when I told her on my first date. You know, it's always good to tell like your new girl that you want to change the world, isn't it? And she
I like her.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I think if she knew what we'd have to go through, I think she'd have ran out the door when I said it, but she just loved the idea.
You are. You just happy to take one little box and say, okay, we're up and running.
I always remember putting the first brush full of paint on, and I just remember, I don't know how or why, but I remember knowing that this was the start of a journey. I felt amazing. You know, we're very materialistic, especially in this country, and, you know, sometimes people can get lost in this, money's everything, but that feeling that I got, the initial feeling, was just unbelievable, knowing that you've helped, you know, however many people were going to use the room, knowing that you brightened the room up for them.
Tell us how it's grown over the last 10 years.
It's been an absolute, like, the toughest journey, so I know when someone sees someone doing something kind and doing something nice, that genuinely, like, triggers something inside me. They want to do something, and that's how
it's a ripple effect, isn't it?
And it's true. And next month we were getting like emails from people in Africa and America and everywhere saying we'd love to set this up where we are. It's such a good concept.
Did it ever get to the stage where you thought, whoa, this is too much, I can't actually cope?
I've had a million times. At the very start, it was like that because obviously it was just an idea. We didn't have an office or anything, and you know, we were getting businesses and all sorts getting in touch, and it was a little bit like, wow, this is getting too big. But it was all a learning curve because even at the time, I started to get phone calls off people who were like, are you the lad who does the bedrooms for nothing? I was like, no, I'm not. So I was thinking, well, no. So I was learning as well as I went along. I was learning that not everybody out there is as genuine as you think. Do you know what I mean? It's got to be a genuine dude. It's got to be a genuine face. As well as the bedroom materials, we had we called it the acts of kindness. So I thought, well, health and well-being experts can come forward and give their time, which they did, like meditation, mindfulness, PT instructors. Then businesses were getting involved, but businesses were coming forward and offering their time and their support.
So you now receive a salary from the charity. This is your full-time role?
Yeah, running a charity it's exactly the same as any business. It's a massive operation to do any type of charity or any organisation. Me and Jill live with my dad. We live in my dad's house, so there's a lot of sacrifices we've made. Like, I don't think anybody would ever scrutinise what we do. Like,
now, Kevin, you've helped thousands of people in your area. And we've had a message from one of them, which I'd love to play to you. So have a listen to this.
Just wants to say how much Kev changed my son Carl's life and mine. And our brothers is amazing. He did a bedroom refurbishment for him, but it was so much more than that. My son Carl, he's autistic, and before going to run our brothers, he had no confidence, but now he has, and it's come so much out of his shell. He goes to groups, we run, and he's a different person. And not just Carl. I go to the groups we run at the hub and meet up with people, we have chats and a laugh. The thing is, about Kev, I I know I can call him any time of the day. He's there to listen.
Sanchez, actually, I'm sure you recognise her voice, but you can hear there the admiration and affection she has for you because of everything you've done for her son.
The change that's happened in their life has been amazing from, you know, our support. We could have just done a bedroom refurbishment for them and left them, but we've stayed with them, we've joined our groups, and they've built their own confidence and resilience, and, you know, they've laid the foundation down for a better life for themselves.
So we've got a message board, and people have just been scribbling those things, those messages, the mottos that keep them going when things are really quite tough. Is there anything that you keep coming back to?
I always just come back to that any type of change I want to see in my outer world starts within me.
Kev, do you ever think back to that 14-year-old boy who went through such trauma? Would you ever have thought that all these years later you would be making such a positive difference to so many lives?
No, not at all. I just think as people we can evolve. We don't have to be the person that we used to be.
Thank you so much for coming in and sitting down and having a chat with us. Sorry if your coffee's gone cold, by the way.
It's okay, I'm fine. I'll have another one. Cheers.
I loved having Kevin in. He's an incredible human being. Thank you so much for sending in your responses to the conversations we've been having here at Cafe Hope. Vicky's been in touch to say, amidst all the doom and gloom of the news, it's just what we need to hear positive stories about real people and acts of kindness. And this is from Ben, who says, listened to your show for the first time yesterday. I was moved and inspired by Debbie's story. The ability to allow regular people to tell their stories about strength and hope in adversity. Keep sending in your thoughts. And if you'd like to come and have a brew with me here, tell us your story. Just email cafehope@bbc.co.uk. Time for me now to get back behind the counter. These tea cakes don't toast themselves. Do come back soon though. Damn! Burnt tea cake, anyone?
Cafe Hope was produced by Uma Dore-Swami and Nikki Edwards. There's another story of courage on Radio 4 this afternoon when Helena Bonham Carter tells the story of Churchill's favourite spy, Christian Granville, in History's Secret Heroes at last.
Hello, this is Courtney Love.
Courtney loves women.
Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin.
In this candid and raw new music series, the musician Courtney Love shares the ultimate soundtrack to her life.
I'm taking you on a journey with my musical loves and inspirations, celebrating women in music, the music they made, and the music that made me.
This is a unique and personal glimpse into Courtney's life.
If I didn't have music, there's no way I would have made it. If I only have words.
Courtney loves women.
To listen, search Courtney on BBC Sounds.
BBC News at 10 o'clock. The Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron, has urged Israel not to retaliate against a barrage of Iranian missiles and drones fired at the country on Saturday. Israel says 99% of these were shot down. Lord Cameron said the country should regard this as a victory, and he defended the UK military help given to Israel as being in the national interest. The Israeli War Cabinet is due to meet again at midday. Rishi Sunak is also expected to address Parliament this afternoon. The Shadow Defence but called for diplomacy to de-escalate the situation.
And now the overriding priority is to make sure that we urge restraint on everyone involved and we see a reduction in the tensions, we prevent further conflict, and we turn the focus again to trying to secure a ceasefire, an immediate ceasefire in Gaza.
Jury selection will start in New York this afternoon in a case which will see Donald Trump become the first former US president to face criminal prosecution. He denies falsifying business records in connection with a payment to an adult film star. 3 other criminal cases against him are unlikely to start before he runs in the presidential election in November. Police in Australia are investigating whether Joel Cauchi, who stabbed to death 6 people at a shopping centre in Sydney on Saturday, deliberately targeted women. 5 women and a male security guard who tried to intervene were killed. A report says manufacturing represents a larger portion of the UK economy than previously thought. Most economists think the sector accounts for about 8% of GDP, but research by the economic advisory firm Oxford Economics and the trade body the Manufacturing Technologies Association said it represented 23%. Organisers of the Beijing Half Marathon say they're investigating allegations that 3 East African athletes deliberately allowed China's star runner, He Jie, to win the race yesterday. They're accused of slowing down and waving her out in front. None of the runners has commented. BBC News.
Radio 4's random postcode generator sends the patch to Northowram in West Yorkshire this morning, where Polly Weston finds the story of 2 cricket clubs separated by a dry stone wall. That's in an hour's time, after Woman's Hour, with Jessica Crichton.
Hello and welcome to the programme. Great to be back with you this week. Now, over the weekend you would have seen the tragic events in Australia, where a man stabbed and killed 6 people in a Sydney shopping centre. 5 of the victims were female. Well, in the last few hours, Australian police have said the killer was targeting women. We'll be live on the ground in Australia shortly for reaction to how this has impacted women in the area and also the country as a whole. Also this morning, 10 years on from the kidnappings that shocked the world, we find out more about the 276 Chibok schoolgirls who were abducted from their school in northeastern Nigeria by Islamic militant group Boko Haram. Our reporter has spoken to some of the girls who managed to escape and to the parents of schoolgirls who are still missing. Plus, 2024 marks 100 years since the Declaration of the Rights of the Child were introduced, protecting the human rights of children. We now know it as the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. But did you know that it was first established by British feminists? Well, we'll be diving into its history and finding about how it impacts school children today. And we'll have some fantastic guests in the studio for you this morning. Actor Jing Lucy on her first lead role, playing a police officer in a thrilling new action-packed drama series which is set on a plane, and also speaking to us about breaking new ground as a British East Asian actor. And poet Imogen Wade joins us to discuss winning the prestigious National Poetry Competition for a poem that actually helped her process the traumatic event of being mugged when she was a teenager. Now, if you've already had a scroll through social media this morning, you would have seen many pictures of a whole host of theatre stars lining the red carpet at London's Royal Albert Hall. That's because yesterday was the Olivier Awards. Sunset Boulevard was one of the big winners, with the award for Best Actress in a Musical going to Nicole Scherzinger for her role as Norma Desmond. Nicole was on Woman's Hour, actually, when the musical first opened, and she told Anita Rani about the moment that theatre director Jamie Lloyd first approached her for the role.
I obviously grew up doing musical theatre, love musical theatre, and I thought, okay, well, there's many roles that I would love to play, and this is not one of them. Jamie.
Why? Did you not know the story? Did you not see? Had you not?
I think I kind of knew the film, the Gloria Swanson version, when it's just like this kind of, bewildered, kind of out there older star, just longing to be seen again, longing for fame again. And I was like, yo, this chick is crazy, Jamie. And how old is she? Come on, dude, I still look good under bright lights. And he was like, no, don't pay attention to any of that. He said, strip it all back. He said, just read the script, read the words, the story on the page, and listen to the music. And when I listened to the music, I fell madly in love with her. I felt like I had written those songs myself. And so the rest was history. We had talked for a long time about it because I was still scared. I still had my reservations of and how people would perceive it, and he just kept going back to telling a truthful human story.
So what were your reservations?
Well, just what they would think. It's like, oh my gosh, is my career over? Am I what? Just, I always wanted to be like. Growing up, I wanted to be Lea Salonga in Miss Saigon, not seeing this.
So you think people would think, oh, that's Nicole playing a role that people would have judged you playing that character?
I think, to be honest, initially I thought the role was a lot older because Norma Desmond's character is set to be in the 50s.
But how old is she?
But really, when Patti LuPone and Glenn Close played it, they were about my age.
It's crazy, isn't it? So, not 40s.
And it's crazy how we progressed, because back then when they played it, it's like, that's ancient. And now it's like 40s are the new 30s, you know what I'm saying? Oh, look at that. My skin is glowing.
Brilliant. That's Nicole Scherzinger speaking to Anita there. Now, she said in the interview, she also reiterated it when she accepted her award last night, joking that she had dreamed of many musical roles, but Norma Desmond actually was not one of them. So today we're asking you, is there anything that you've, I suppose, never really dreamt of doing, but it actually led to a big success in your life? It could be anything from work, from life, or relationships, or friendships, anything at all. You can text the program on 84844. Text will be charged at your standard message rate. You can get in touch via social media as well, using the at BBC Women's Hour handle. You can email us through our website. You can also send us a WhatsApp message or a voice note. Use the number 03700 100 444. Get in touch about that, or indeed anything else that you hear on the programme this morning. Now, as you've just heard in the news, Australian police investigating the fatal stabbing of 6 people at a crowded shopping centre in Bondi Junction in Sydney say they're now looking into whether the attacker deliberately targeted women. Joel Cauchi killed 5 women and a male security guard who tried to intervene before he was shot dead by police. A number of those taken to hospital, including a baby, were also female. The Police Commissioner for New South Wales, Karen Webb, told a news conference about the CCTV footage.
The videos speak for themselves, don't they? And that's certainly a line of inquiry for us. It's obvious to me, it's obvious to detectives that seems to be an area of interest that the offender had focused on women and avoided the men.
So to find out more about how women have responded in the area and whether violence against women is actually an issue in the country, I'm joined by BBC Australia correspondent Katie Watson, who's based in Sydney. Good morning, Katie.
Good evening, my end.
Good evening, your end. Now, of course, you're there, you're in Sydney. You've been covering what has happened since it first happened on Saturday at the shopping centre. So give us a sense of how people have reacted.
Well, I'm actually at the site where people have been laying flowers behind me for the last 2 days. People have been coming and paying their respects to the victims, and repeatedly I've heard the phrase, "This doesn't happen in Australia. This is a safe country," and the shock and disbelief that something like this can happen. And of course, the stories of who these victims are and their families and their stories has just made it all the more difficult, of course, and the focus is still very much on remembering those who died and looking out for those who are still in hospital.
So the response being that people feel this is a rare event, that this isn't usual in the country.
Yeah, so in terms of a violent attacks, this is something that is very unusual. I think that this new conversation, this new narrative, which the police commissioner has brought up, saying that the line of inquiry is that he targeted women, is very very focused here in Australia. It's obviously clearly 5 women, 1 man was killed. The man who was killed was a security guard who intervened in trying to save lives. Of the 12 people who were hospitalised, 8 were women. 4 have since been released from hospital, so we don't know what the statistics are, but we heard it from the police commissioner that these are numbers that they are definitely going to investigate. Of course, it is a line of an inquiry. It's an early stage of the investigation. But I spoke to Full Stop Australia, which is a group trying to put an end to sexual, domestic and family violence here. They said that men's violence is an ongoing, devastating crisis in Australia, impacts of which are experienced by the whole community. And although Visit Australia has committed to ending gender-based violence in a generation, they said that the country still has a long way to go. So, you know, the fact that this is even being looked at is something that perhaps doesn't come as a surprise to people here in Australia. Of course, there's also a devastating line of inquiry if anything comes on it.
Yeah, like you said there, that it's rare for mass violence of this nature. And of course, interesting that the police commissioner decided to go down this line of gender-based violence. According to research group Counting Dead Women Australia, 64 women were killed in incidents of violence last year in 2023. People on the ground, do they feel that violence against women is a big problem, a specific problem in Australia?
It's a conversation that is talked about continually. I mean, in fact, today there's been a massive story beyond, of course, this terrible stabbing. There was a massive story 3 years after the claim that a young woman was raped inside Australia's Parliament House. A civil court has found it's true. Now, it's in connection with a political staffer called Bruce Lemon. He has always denied having sex with Brittany Higgins. He sued a network for defamation over a TV interview with her. I mean, but the case triggered a lot of reflection here in Australia. There were protests. More recently, there were 3 women who were killed by men in the town of the city of Ballarat near Melbourne. You know, 3 women in one city, you know, all very close together. These are they're not just statistics, these are real stories that are very current. So hearing this line from the police that they are looking at the issue of whether he targeted women is obviously a shocking you know, line of inquiry, but I think a lot of people here feel that it's a line of inquiry that's very worth going down, given the scenario and the conversations that go on here in Australia.
And leading on from this, Katie, a report from Homelessness Australia last year, you know, as you mentioned, found domestic and family violence was the leading cause of homelessness for women, with nearly half of those seeking homelessness assistance citing it as a reason. Do you feel as though, you know, those two things are quite intricately linked? Is that the case on the ground?
So clearly there is a problem. In fact, the government has committed 2.3 billion Australian dollars, about 1 billion pounds from the budget to look at plans of women's safety initiatives. But you know, it's money, and whether on the ground that's actually can change the reality. You know, when you've got high numbers of domestic violence, and if you look at the Australian Bureau of Statistics, 1 in 6 women since the age of 15 experienced physical or sexual violence by a current or previous cohabiting partner. 1 in 4 had experienced emotional abuse. 1 in 6 had experienced economic abuse. You know, these are statistics that drive women to try and seek refuge, or in failing that, you know, there are fewer options for them. And I think it's looking at that whole of how to help and support women within, whether, you know, at home, but also if they've had to leave a dangerous space to be able to seek refuge. This is a huge issue that Australia's committed to tackling, but is very far from doing so.
And bringing it back to the case in question, and speaking about the perpetrator, Joel Couchy, he was known to police, so I suppose people will ask the question, well, could this have been prevented? His dad has spoken to reporters, Andrew Couchy, and said he was a very sick boy. He also said he wanted a girlfriend, and he's got no social skills, and he was frustrated out of his brain. That was a direct response when he was asked about why he may, Joel, have targeted women. What do the police know about him, and what was their interaction with him before this happened?
Yeah, I mean, the interview site was a very powerful, difficult interview to watch, because he talked about the love he had for his son, but also said he loved the monster, and it was a really difficult interview to even watch. So what we know, I mean, it's very early days, and in fact the investigation could go on for months. There's also the state premier here in New South Wales has said that they are going to launch an inquiry. The coroner's office is going to launch an inquiry looking into the events around the Bondi Junction stabbing, and that includes looking at the interaction that Joel Couchy has with authorities. Now, he was originally from Queensland. He moved down to New South Wales just a month ago. But you know, he didn't always have a fixed abode. I believe he struggled to you know, live in one place. He lived rough at some parts of his life. It's a difficult one to piece together, but that's exactly what they're doing, finding out how much interaction, what that interaction was, and of course why perhaps there were no alarm bells that sounded, and you know, whether they could have done more. Those are all things that are going to be answered, or they'll try to answer in the coming months.
And has there been any update on those that are still in hospital and their condition?
So 12 were admitted to hospital overnight, and Monday morning 4 were released, so 8 remain in hospital, including the little baby girl.
She was just 9 months old.
9 months old, exactly. And I think a lot of people are really hoping, you know, that's a story that's just so difficult. But the good news is that she is out of a critical condition, and she's in a serious condition, and there's a feeling that she could be moved to a lower risk ward in hospital in the coming days. So that's a small glimmer of hope, if you like, in what's been a devastating few days.
It really has. But Katie, thank you very much for bringing us up to date and giving us the thoughts and feelings of those on the ground. That was BBC Australia correspondent Katie Watson, who is based out in Sydney. Now, this next discussion might not be for you if you're not a fan of flying. New ITV drama Red Eye has been billed as a nerve-jangling thriller and takes place entirely on a plane, pretty most. The Red Eye, from London to Beijing. Jing Lucy plays DC Hannah Lee, a London police officer who has to escort a man accused of murder back to China. You might remember Jing from Holby City, Hollywood rom-com, Crazy Rich Asians, or even the spy thriller Heart of Stone. Well, in this latest series, Jing has broken new ground as one of the first, if not the first, British East Asian woman to play this type of role. Jing, sitting across from me